Now, we have a very thought-provocative theme for today, which is, the CEE monetary frontier. And this, topic is linked very well to actually the final remark from Professor Belka that, we should consider joining Eurozone. We have in the panel countries from non-Eurozone, which is even more complex and I think even more thought-provocative, because this intersection between digital euro, MiCA regulation and sovereignty is something which can be a sign of growth perspective, but also it may create some tensions and frictions. But always, an intersection is something rich. So without further ado, I would like to ask all the panelists, how do they see this, that in 2023, the European Commission launched this program actually for digital euro. So that will enable individuals and corporations to have wallets denominated in digital euros. There have been ever since talks about if there should be a differentiator between Eurozone countries, because this is mainly addressed to Eurozone countries, but non-Eurozone countries, they have access. And also, how do you see the impact from your perspective? I mean, is it an opportunity for growth? Is it something disrupting? I mean, disrupting from a policy standpoint, disrupting the existing ecosystem. So just invite you to, give us your angle.
I could start. So I really want to echo what Professor Belka said earlier. It is really an opportunity to have a more united Europe, regardless of the euro being the official currency in that country or not. Because with the digital euro, of course, we don't have it here in Romania, the euro, but we would like to, of course. It is a difficult decision and we don't want to take it lightly. That's why we don't have it yet. But it is a very good opportunity to work together with the countries that already have the euro. In our citizens, they are already used to handling euro. Most of them have been around Europe. Many of them live and work in Europe. But so for us, the digital euro is just another means of payment. I don't think it's going to be anything disruptive. I mean, it's not going to be that revolutionary. Yeah, I mean, our colleagues here from Visa have done much more revolutionary things so far. So it's just an alternative means of payment.
Okay, Michal, your view.
Thank you. Well, we were reassured from the beginning that first there was this commitment by all G7 central banks. If they ever build CBDC, they will do it in a way not to disrupt monetary policy of smaller countries and not to cause dollarization or euroization. And then when we saw the text that was provided, that part was taken care of there. The concerns that we had were basically two. First, because we assume all of us in non-euro countries will be open to for our citizens and companies to use the digital euro rails should it be built. We were concerned about the process to make it clear what are the conditions, who decides, what are the timelines, because generally we prefer clear regulation to unclear ones, although, the solicitors may feel like a little bit of unclearness here and there. And second thing, which to be fair, was actually Ministry of Finance concern was the competition angle for our payments industry, but also for our e-commerce industry. If there is to be a new, more, cheaper or more efficient payment rail, then our industry should be able to use it from the get-go without complications. So this was also taken on board as far as I recall in the latest version of the text. And although in Czechia we don't see a need for domestic CBDC, we wish our Eurosystem colleagues the best with this project. It's always difficult to be a pioneer, an innovator in something. So let's see how this works out. It's good to see that this legislative deadlock seems to be over, and now it's the building phase.
Thank you. Tamás, how do you see from Hungary? I mean, how is it seen? What's the impact?
Well, I got a confession to make at first. While I love wandering into monetary policy, I'm not the half of man, any monetary policy analyst in our central bank, so I might shed a light from a supervisory angle. I might start from some sort of capital market side, where I see an uptake or a chance of promise of digital euro. What I do believe is tokenization. We do have this DLTR, like this DLT pilot regime, allowing to have security settlement systems and MTFs dealing with tokenized securities. It's so good, but the only thing, the cash flag needs to be central bank money, which always a little bit problematic to, connect central banking systems with those DLT platforms. And if we have one interoperable EU euro that could be used in all these kind of platforms, that would make really a big asset and would have a kind of certain momentum or certain uptake on tokenization trends in the EU, I believe.
Yeah, thank you. What's the situation in Georgia? I mean, how do you refer to this, upcoming changes? Because, we know that you are aspiring to and changing your legislation to be more in line with European legislation. Would that be an impact? Yeah.
Yes. So in case of the CBDCs, we started researching like 4 years ago, and we asked ourselves why we needed CBDC. And we see that our population, like 95% of the people are banked. And also we have the RTGS system, we have currently the instant payment system, and why we need the CBDC. Then we came up with this idea that we need CBDC as a platform to give the financial institutions, like small players like fintechs, the platform, the infrastructure where they can develop the new products which will based on the blockchain. Like we can see the CBDC, the Ethereum as a L0, and they can develop their L1 and L2 solutions on top of our CBDC architecture. Then we made the pilot last year with the help of the Ripple, and we did the 4 use cases in our pilot case, and this was mainly the technical one. We wanted to test the tokenization, we wanted to test smart contracts, and also the technical capabilities of the Ripple blockchain. And after that, we did the finalized report, and currently we are in the situation that we are not hurrying to go live. And also, you know that main regulations in Georgia, like capital adequacy, and also the many regulations are based on the EU's frameworks. And that's why we are currently closely looking for how the digital euro documents and how the digital euro project will go into the live, and then we will see if we want to go and have this kind of regulations like the digital euro have, or we go on other way. But currently we are going also in the research mode currently, as we already test the technology. We want regulatory clarity currently, and we are seeing the euros and also the what will happen in USA and other countries currently.
Okay, Thank you very much. Conrad, over to you, because of course we all know that we owe a lot to Visa, not only as a platform, as very modestly Catalin said, but as really being a key to innovation, but also, being a facilitator of innovator everywhere. How do you relate to this, let's say, Euroization of economies due to, this perspective of having digital euros? And also, if you think that there should be a differentiator between Western companies and those in Eurozone and non-Eurozone countries?
Thank you, Christina. So considering our role in the entire ecosystem, we always try to keep close eye, at the very least, if not hand, to all the developments in innovations that are happening. Coming back few steps to the times where Libra project was developed. Obviously, we have been observing this one from utmost attention. When it fell down, we felt there will be some response towards how CBDC might be structured in Europe and worldwide. And indeed, this interest started to happening. Not so much in Europe. However, I must recall that in Hungary, I think there was this small-scale pilot run by the central bank. Not sure what happened next, but in Europe, typically, until the Digital Europe project emerged, there was no real developments. We've seen some in, East Asia, in Americas, but this is for another story. So getting to the point, we have been observing what's been happening, around the world in CBDC area. And when Digital Euro as a project emerged, obviously we started to also raise our interest how it might differentiate the entire ecosystem, the entire payment landscape. We absolutely understand, the drivers, policy drivers of the ECB, which are, by the way, very different from the other regions of the world when it comes to what's the rationale for development on central bank digital currencies. And we have been very close to looking at those projects. We definitely appreciate, this stability and monetary factor that the ECB is trying to gain. But I think, as Michal rightly said, this all boils down to local expectations, local market expectations, and the dynamics of the growth and economic growth when they are at the current state. We, as all us here, are representing non-Eurozone countries, so it puts us in a little bit different position that our colleagues in Western European countries, or even some Central European countries like Slovakia and now mentioned Croatia and Bulgaria. So this is what we need to take into the consideration when we are building this ecosystem. Obviously, central banks and my colleagues are responsible for setting some tone for any potential developments at the market or steer the respective governments towards the right policy in this respect. But from Visa perspective, we also have been looking at the response and reaction of our clients, banks, to be very most precise. And we had, to be mildly speaking, very, I would say, medium support of digital euro for a variety of reasons. We don't have time to go into details, investments, additional scrutiny, so on and so forth. So our role is mostly on the observance side. We are, as a company, also a participant of Project Agora, so more worldwide, initiative that is trying to develop some sort of a setup for CBDC at scale. But I think it's still too early to say what will be the final outcome. We know that from the regulatory perspective, there will be still a couple of years until digital euro will emerge from the practical perspective. And with all that's happening, in parallel, other, payment ecosystem emerging, instant payments, alternative mobile payments, it will be really interesting to observe what will be the role of digital payments on digital euro payments when they will come to the market, which will be in a very different stage of development that it is right now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Conrad. That's very interesting. I have an additional question linked to this proposed digital European project. Because, as I said, this is actually focusing on Eurozone countries, but non-Eurozone will have access. And there are some proposed limits, which I think were, they are still discussed a bit amongst countries. But how do you see these limits? Because I think the intention is, to limit the impact and the financial stability ultimately. Agate, what do you think?
So the main reason for the limits was to help the digital euro get traction as means of payment and not means of savings.
Yeah.
The regulation proposal started with a limit of 3,000 digital euros per person. But after much consideration and discussions and some analysis that actually some of my colleagues at the National Bank of Romania have done, the Commission agreed to a starting limit of 1,500. And that limit can be increased depending on the situation at a certain point, or in case of a crisis, such as the electricity crisis in Spain a couple of years ago. This is the advantage of the digital nature of the euro, that it can be adjusted on the go. There is also a very nice feature of the digital euro, is that if, for an example, a payment service provider that you have your account with, something happens to its systems, they are not working, or God knows what can happen, in case of a crisis, or the accounts can be taken over by another PSP, of course with the user's approval and everything, but it can be taken over very easily, almost seamlessly. So this is very good in case also of an emergency, of a crisis.
Okay, so that's a reasonable tool built in, but of course there will be a discussion about the amount
and the offline feature.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
They've really taken a good.
Very, very quick additional question linked to CBDC is whether you think domestic CBDC is an alternative to this digital euro.
Well, as I said, at least in Czechia, our analysis show no need for CBDC for the time being. Cash still works as a backup, but also it doesn't make sense to really make Czech CBDC before the digital euro is out, because one of the strong or one of the reasons that we see as valid is interoperability. But of course, nobody's gonna make digital euro to fit Czech koruna. We have to do it the other way around. So one of the things that I would like to appreciate publicly is that Eurosystem seems to be building digital euro like the target infrastructure in a multi-currency way. So should we decide further down the road that we actually do need a Czech CBDC for digital euro being such a success, or for any other reason, it would definitely make sense to use common European infrastructure that already exists that would also take care of this interoperability issue. But for the time being, as I already said, we wish Eurosystem the best, and let's see how this pans out. Maybe if I can just have a short comment on how this 3,000 euro
Yes, please.
limit came about. If you actually look into the detail, it was a simple calculation by ex-colleague Mr. Ulrich Binzeil, now a professor, but a former central banker at the ECB. And the logic was straightforward. He just took the amount of cash in circulation and divided it by population of Eurozone, and he came with this ballpark number. So, of course, it was just the first idea, and it's up to the politicians and legislators to decide, how the limit should be computed and in what way. But I can already say, ECB is working hard on making sure that whatever number comes out it will work in practice on one side and will not endanger the banking sector on the other side, because, as central bankers, we always think about risks first and maybe opportunities later.
Yeah. No, so I think it's a very good embedded principle. I mean, the actual amount, it's a different discussion. I would like to focus a bit on this MiCA regulation, and because it was a great step forward to having, instead of fragmenting or no legislation in our countries, basically, and across CE, we now have a pan-European regime. And I would like to hear your views about, the impact of application of MiCA in your respective jurisdictions. Because, for example, I would be interested to find out whether for a crypto services provider, this is an opportunity. You've seen CE-based crypto provider, having the opportunity to access Western markets, for example, or is it more, an inbound from Western countries to your respective countries? I think that's going to be for any of you. Yeah, Tomasz.
Okay.
I will start with you.
Well, thank you. What we see in Hungary is we get a not that big, rather small, but steady and growing and enthusiast crypto heads. Approximately retail is like certain 100,000 retail investors are dealing with crypto. And what we see is Bitcoin is kind of number one asset, the gold standard that everybody's kind of interested to. When it comes to MiCA application, well, with certain malice, I can say that level playing field left us in the sidelines in a manner that we cannot gauge that interest in Hungary regarding to gaining licenses, and there was some sort of additional regulation on top, which made it a national burden for also investors and institutions to deal with crypto assets. What we see there's an uptake is crypto-related assets, like asset managers and also investment firms are actively dealing in assets which are somehow linked to crypto assets where the underlying is crypto. So frankly, the thing is, if you have an securities identification number for the thing, good. If it's just pure crypto, just forget it.
That's a very interesting angle because it's on the investment side. So yeah.
And what we see also in our report that the price of Bitcoin is one of the main reference points when it comes to portfolio managers. So if you're considering whether to buy or sell certain assets, the kind of benchmark they're looking at is always the kind of price of Bitcoin. They are highly correlated.
Yeah, thank you so much. Conrad, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe starting with a local angle, if you ask me what would be the impact of MiCA on Polish market, I guess it would be quite positive if we had the opportunity to implement MiCA, because we are, just as a reminder, the only outstanding country in the EU that has not done that yet. I don't want to go into the politics, but we are in a situation that we won't have an regulatory regime over MiCA because it won't be, implemented properly. Therefore, only licensing process would allow any of fintech, crypto asset players to, operate in Poland. This is the reality. So I would stop with that. But in general, obviously, MiCA as a regulatory framework, in our visa opinion, is definitely creating a positive ecosystem, I would say, for more transparency, stability of all the players that could, operate in a very certain stabilized way. We as an organization, obviously also from the global perspective, we have been looking at, and crypto and stable coins in a very horizontal way, as again, which I mentioned earlier, as a potential angle of our interest, how we could transform this new, blockchain-based reality and combine it with our proved and, secure Rails infrastructure. And this was the primary focus for us, how, first of all, induce this access between crypto asset providers to fiat currency through Visa rails. This is what we have been focusing on from day one, I would say, when we have started exploring what might be the other opportunity for us, a business opportunity. So potentially, settlement infrastructure that could be improved. Obviously, one of the drivers that we know how stablecoins emerged and crypto emerged in the markets was, first of all, acceleration of the payments. Blockchain was this tool that provided this kind of a feature. So this is something that we also related to in terms of cross-border money remittances and money movement. This is definitely one of those angles that we are exploring. And last but not least, programmability of a digital currency. This is also something that we are still on a very early stage of exploration, but nonetheless, this is what we are looking for. We have, of course, some of the proof points already, not so much from European markets. We have one up and running established pilot with one of the Spanish banks, but we have started our developments in US, in China, in Australia. So this has been more of a work that we have done. Some of the examples, not going into details with a limited time that we have, was basing stablecoin payouts on our Visa rails, meaning some of the US employers, for instance, sending cryptocurrency to their employees as a mean of payment by their choice, have been able to transfer it to fiat currency through our Visa rails. So this is just one of the many aspects of stablecoin and crypto that we are testing nowadays. But we feel this might be quite an interesting setup ahead of us.
Yeah, Michal, do you see crypto license providers in Czech Republic following MiCA implementation?
Well, we ended up with probably the most applications in the EU, about 250.
That's what I'm asking, yes.
We granted 7, so that tells you a little bit about the quality and also perhaps about why we are seen as a somewhat strict regulator. But then, Czech license is a kind of proof that that you're serious about doing business and you go about it prudently. Maybe a general comment on this, sovereignty angle, or I think just what Konrad said shows that, competition is good. So stablecoins obviously keep some of us on our toes and keep thinking about how to keep our rail relevant for the future. For us in a smaller non-Eurozone markets, I think the challenge is not so much worrying about losing sovereignty, because in EU we have free flow of capital. Our citizens could escape into the euro anytime they want, just using a digital neobank. I'm not gonna name any, but you know who I'm talking about. But I think the challenge for us in the central banks is, like for many of you here, the change is quite fast already, and it seems to be accelerating. So really. And going back to what Professor Belka said, as long as we have our own national currencies, it's incumbent on us to try to make payments cheaper, especially cross-border. And the question is, what should we focus on? Are dollar stablecoins gonna replace correspondent banking, or are the card networks coming out with something that will help the corporates too? Or, is interlinking fast payment systems the way to go forward? What is happening with Agora, where only Switzerland from the smaller markets is involved for the time being? So really many things are happening next to each other. And the question is, what should we focus on?
Yeah, I have a pressing question related also to MiCA, because in Romania, we don't have a representative from FSA here, and licensing is on their side. But we struggled with finding banks ready and willing to open fiat accounts. I think that's a real problem. And again, Agata, I know it's not on your plate, but somehow, it is, because it is related to banks. So would you encourage them? Is there something in the supervisory or risk management that scares them so much, or?
It's not really about scaring. I would encourage everybody that has a good business idea to think it through thoroughly and to get the risk assessments really professionally done. This is what I encourage really everybody, not only in the crypto area, because this is one of the reasons why the banks won't open accounts to these entities, because they haven't convinced the banks that the risk model and the business model is solid enough. Yeah, Michal was talking about the licensing applications that they received. This is really, sovereignty, yes, but a country receives so many applications and really takes its time and is really serious on analyzing them, it is a sign of trust. And this is something that we still have in the non-Euro countries. Yeah? The industry trusts us that we are doing our job seriously and we are analyzing all the applications that come to us.
Thomas, you want to say something? I'm also conscious of time, because I have one more question and then I want to open up to the public.
Indeed, absolutely. One thing which I may like to draw the attention is comparing to MiCA with the American regulation. And this is something always kind of interesting, whether MiCA is too rigid comparing to Genius Act in America. And one last remark on why banks do not open bank accounts for cryptos as a service providers. What we see in Hungary is they definitely value more their corresponding bank partnerships, because, American banking partners have extremely rigid and strict checklists when it comes to offering services. And some may say that no to crypto. And if I want to keep that partner, I got to say no to crypto, else I will lost access to overseas markets, which I believe is quite a loss.
Yeah, thank you. I think there is a consensus among us that actually, this CEE, Euro, MiCA is not a threat to sovereignty, to monetary sovereignty, to regulatory sovereignty. But I would ask one question related to security, because security is an important part of sovereignty at the end of the day. And there is a risk, obviously, related to this new, innovative and transformative tools, let's say. Do you think that there should be something we should focus more, or how do you see the interplay between supervisory and key players like, Visa or just one thought from all of you, and then we will open to the public.
Sometimes people say that Europe is overregulated, but one of the reasons why this happens is that it encourages security and level playing field. Yeah, all of this development that we've seen recently could not have been possible if the users were not convinced that their money is secure. All this collaboration that we have would not be in place, if people wouldn't trust one another. And trust comes from security measures well implemented. This is really one of the main concerns also at the National Bank of Romania when PSPs and other entities come to us with different models, business models. This is what we ask them first. What are your security mindset? What is your security mindset?
Trust is a magical word. I know that there's going to be a panel with this topic, so we will join that panel.
Well, my point of view, maybe personal, is this: I would warn against this techno fetishism. Focusing too much on the technical side of things. I mean, we spent number of years implementing strong customer authentication in the EU. It took a while to push the ecosystem into it. And what did the fraudsters do? They're businessmen like any other. They just went for the weakest part, which is us humans. So what we see, at least in Czechia, we have now more authorized push payment fraud than card fraud now. And people are losing really life-changing, amounts of money, unlike with the cards where it used to be smaller amounts, or whether it's still small amounts. So I think on one side you have this like AI mythos, you can find out zero-day vulnerabilities, in a day that we didn't know about. But I think it's more about really back to basics. How do we communicate efficiently to people to think twice before sending big amounts to anybody, whoever pretend to be police, central bankers, our bankers, whatever. And second thing is basic digital hygiene. That's also for us in the organizations, password management, that people don't sell credentials to somebody. Because if you look at the really big things, like we watch a lot Brasilia a lot with Pix, the really big issues in fraud in Pix last year were somebody at a third-party supplier sold their credentials to fraudsters, and they managed to take over accounts of smaller banks and send huge amounts of money that then went to crypto and went away from Brazil. So really, let's focus on the tech. Tech is good. A lot of tech suppliers here, but also let's not forget we need to communicate efficiently to everyday woman and man on the street, and also still keep the basics on mind.
I'm so much with you, Michael, because ultimately it's about education, financial education, and education, generally speaking. So much. What do you think?
Well, I cannot agree more with the gentleman sitting on my right. That's why we have kind of a two-pillar approach at the central bank. One of them is consumer education. We got a program called Cyber Shield, which aims to boost consumer literacy and awareness when it comes to fraud. So that's kind of a successful program initiative we're running for like 2 or 3 years. Kind of all governmental institutions are teamed up with, so it's quite a coverage. And the other them is kind of our new pride, kind of pride of our Navy, is the instant real-time monitoring system, which we embedded in the payment system. So when it comes to any kind of payment transaction, solution leveraging artificial intelligence outputs kind of a fraud probability value sometimes better than banks, and banks can include this into their own risk assessment, whether to decide it's a fraud or not. So I believe these are the two pillars on which we rely.
David, what do you think?
Yeah, so when we think about the security of the new technologies, like a TLTs and blockchain, we see everywhere that you need to have like a same risks, same rules, and same principles for the known risks. But in future, we are seeing like the risks which is not known, like a quantum computing. So last year we started researching this topic, and we are seeing that Ethereum and also the big corporations are going from the standard cryptography to the quantum proof cryptographies, and they have like their timelines. And also we see in Europe they have like these timelines up to the 2035. When they need to be ready, the financial institutions, governments, to become ready for the quantum computers. Also, we have a lot of resources, and we are researching the topics like privacy-enhancing technologies and like zero knowledge proofs and federated learning, and we see these technologies the way and the path to secure our current and future tools.
Correct.
We already discussed a lot of developments that are happening. All those new features, new capabilities, new payment methods that are emerging nowadays: crypto, stable coins, digital currency of central banks, instant payments, alternative payments. Not mentioning old good cards. with all of that, this is great for, competitiveness and, selection for consumers, but this all comes with a cost of increased exposure to fraud. This is what we are seeing all the time because of very sophisticated social engineering-based tools that the fraudsters are providing. Believe it or not, cybercrime is estimated, growth of cybercrime is estimated on a global scale, increasing more than 5 times global GDP. This is the scale we are talking about. So all of us need to work very hard, and we as Visa are investing heavily every single year into fraud protection, fraud prevention, to realize that this is something that will stick with us, whether we like it or not. So we definitely need to work on trust, security, and collaboration. Even, not looking for Payment Service Directive and Service Regulation that is upcoming, embraced new actors into this whole ecosystem, telco operators, social media platforms, for a very good reason. Fraud is born not only with financial institutions. We all need to realize that. And I believe, when the more those actors will be captured within this ecosystem and this collaborative attempt will be on the rise, this is the only way forward that we can take to try to diminish, fraudulent attempts on a scale.
I need to ask permission for just one question from the audience. One.
Hello, I'm UNCHAIN from Bybit. I'm representing the second largest crypto platform in the world. And my question is, when can we open a bank account in Europe? In euro, in RON, in KUF, in zlot, anything?
I think we should use the time, these 2 days to really come up with a solution. In the meantime, thank you very much to our great panelists. And of course, we will use this time to, have more informal answers from the regulators and from Visa. Thank you very much.